Do you ever find yourself lying awake in bed, unable to sleep? You might have tried counting sheep, or maybe some meditation, but nothing seems to work. Well, if you're looking for a new trick to get some shut-eye, try listening to a calming voice take you through an interesting story from history. So grab your teddy, get comfy, and let's dive into some historical tales that are sure to make you sleepy. Christopher Columbus is a name synonymous with discovery and exploration. However, what many people don't know is that his journey was not without its setbacks. In fact, during his first voyage across the Atlantic, he encountered a fierce storm that nearly capsized his ship. The winds howled, and the waves crashed against the hull of the Santa Maria as Columbus and his crew struggled to keep the vessel afloat. They battled the elements for days, until finally the storm abated and the sun emerged from behind the clouds. When they emerged from the tempest, they found themselves in an unfamiliar stretch of ocean, proving that they had indeed reached the Americas. But rather than celebrating their incredible feat, Columbus and his men were shaken by what they had just endured. They realized that they had sailed further than any European before them and had discovered a new continent. Despite the danger and uncertainty that lay ahead, Columbus pressed on, driven by his insatiable curiosity and desire to explore the unknown. Ancient Rome was a bustling metropolis, a hub of activity and commerce, and like any major city, it had its fair share of traffic problems. Imagine trying to navigate the streets of Rome with horse-drawn carriages, vendors, pedestrians, and the occasional chariot thrown into the mix. It could be a nightmare, especially when you're trying to deliver an important message or, well, escape an angry mob. Enter Titus Livius, better known as Livy, one of ancient Rome's most famous historians. He was born in 59 BC and lived through the rise and fall of the Roman Republic and the establishment of the Roman Empire. Livy was a prolific writer who chronicled the history of Rome from its mythical founding in 753 BC up until his own time. He wrote in Latin, the language of the Romans, which helped to preserve his works for posterity. Livy's account of the founding of Rome is particularly fascinating. According to him, the city was founded by Romulus, who killed his twin brother Remus, after the two of them had successfully kidnapped 2 children from neighboring Alba Longa. Romulus then went on to establish the Roman Senate, create a system of government, and lay out the city's boundaries. But Livy didn't just write about mythical origins. He also covered real historical events such as the Punic Wars, the Social War, and the rise of Julius Caesar. His histories were not just a record of events, but also a commentary on Roman society and culture. He explored themes of power, corruption, civic duty, and the nature of empire. Unfortunately, much of Livy's work has been lost to time. Only a small portion of his monumental 142-book work survives today. However, what we do have gives us a valuable glimpse into the history of ancient Rome and the life of one of its greatest historians. Genghis Khan is a name that strikes fear into the hearts of even the bravest warriors. He was the founder and first great Khan, or emperor, of the Mongol Empire, which became the largest contiguous land-based empire in history. Born in 1160, Genghis was initially just another Mongol chieftain struggling to survive in the harsh environment of Mongolia. But he soon rose to prominence by uniting the various Mongol tribes under his banner. Once united, the Mongols became a formidable force to be reckoned with, and Genghis went on to conquer vast swaths of Asia, including parts of modern-day China, Korea, Russia, and Eastern Europe. His military tactics were both brilliant and brutal, and he was known for his ability to adapt to different situations and his willingness to use any means necessary to achieve victory. But Genghis was not just a bloodthirsty conqueror. He was also a shrewd politician and administrator. He established a sophisticated system of governance and law, and he was a patron of the arts and sciences. Unfortunately, much of Genghis Khan's history is shrouded in myth and legend, making it difficult to separate fact from fiction. Many of the stories about his life and deeds were written centuries after he died, and there is often conflicting accounts of his legacy. Some see him as a ruthless dictator who was responsible for the deaths of millions of people. Others view him as a visionary leader who helped to open up the Eurasian landmass to trade and cultural exchange. Regardless of how he is remembered, there is no doubt that Genghis Khan was one of the most influential figures in history. The ancient Egyptians were known for their many accomplishments, including their impressive building projects. One of the most iconic structures from this era is the Sphinx, a colossal statue with the body of a lion and the head of a human, believed to have been built around 2050 BC. However, the true identity of the sculptor behind this masterpiece has remained a mystery for centuries. Some believe it was the work of Kafir, the pharaoh at the time, while others argue that it was created by a master craftsman named Bhutanus. According to legend, Bhutanus was a genius sculptor who was hired by Chef to build the Sphinx in his own image. However, when the statue was complete, the pharaoh was so pleased with the work that he ordered Bhutanus' hands to be cut off so that nobody else could ever sculpt anything as perfect as the Sphinx. This tale is likely just a myth, but it does raise an interesting question. Who actually built the Sphinx and why? To this day, the true identity of the sculptor remains unknown. Recent studies have attempted to shed light on the mystery, with some researchers suggesting that the Sphinx was actually carved by a group of artists rather than a single individual. The debate is likely to continue for many years to come. But one thing is for sure. The Sphinx remains an enduring symbol of ancient Egypt and one of the most mysterious structures in the world. Richard the Lionheart is a legendary medieval warrior, but what many people do want to know is that he spent the last 6 years of his life blinded and imprisoned. Richard's capture was a result of the Third Crusade, a series of military campaigns imprisoned. Richard's capture was a result of the Third Crusade, a series of military campaigns fought between Christian European forces and Muslim forces in the Holy Land. The crusade was launched in response to the threat posed by Saladin, the Muslim ruler of Egypt and Syria, who had seized Jerusalem in 1187. Richard, along with other European leaders, set out to reclaim the city, but ultimately failed to do so. During the siege of Acre in 1191, Richard's forces captured a fellow knight named Balian of Ibelin, who turned out to be the son of a former king of Jerusalem. Initially, Richard intended to execute Balian, but he eventually offered him a chance to redeem himself by delivering a letter to Saladin, demanding the release of Christian prisoners in exchange for Balian. Despite the risk, Balian agreed to carry out the mission, and upon reaching Saladin, he explained his intentions. Instead of imprisoning Balian, Saladin was impressed by his courage and determination, and decided to grant him safe passage back to the Christian camp. There, Balian successfully negotiated the release of 100 prisoners for 100 sacks of gold. As a reward for his efforts, Saladin made Balian his vizier, or chief minister, and granted him the rank of sultan. Meanwhile, Richard's health was rapidly deteriorating due to his wounds, and when Sultan Qaybad of the Ayyubid dynasty learned of his condition, he offered him a noble ransom in exchange for his release. However, Richard refused to accept less than full control of Jerusalem. The two leaders continued to negotiate until finally an agreement was reached. Richard was released from prison and returned home to England in March 1194, where he died shortly thereafter. These are just a few of the many interesting stories from history that can help you drift off to dreamland. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more content. And if you have a favorite historical tale that you think would make for a good bedtime story, feel free to share it in the comments below. Sweet dreams and happy history learning.